it's very nice to meet both of you. I got to watch the first few episodes of season one and I laughed the entire time.
Good.
Thank you
Good.
for that.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're happy to hear that.
So what drew you both to comedy and then kind of drew you into it enough to pursue it?
Floyd, why don't you start?
Well, what drew me into comedy is what draws a lot of people into comedy, and that's some type of trauma or some type of sadness in your life, and you try to reverse that by going in a known direction. Uh, I was actually speaking on suicide prevention and um, needed to find a way to relax my audience, release them from such a dark subject, and decided to actually go on stage and study comedy to be able to do that on stage, as a speaker, get the timing right, know the right time to do it so that you're not inappropriately creating laughter. And that's what took me to do stand-up, which led me into theater acting, to TV, trying out for TV shows and so on, and to where we are today, which is I was just at a nominations party last night where my first movie, I got nominated for a first-time filmmaker, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And for a different one than I first lead in a movie, and got nominated for best male actor for the year for San Diego Film Awards. So anyway, those things, all occurring right now, but come from that start, moving into comedy.
Awesome. But yeah, congratulations on all of that.
Thank you.
Shelley, how about you?
For me, I have a similar path to Floyd. Mine began really out of tragedy. I had a long-term marriage, and my late husband had a lung transplant. Later on, he passed away from leukemia. And I really, in order to heal from that, I really needed to laugh. And so 2 weeks after he passed, I began going to stand-up comedy shows. Fortunately, San Diego has a fantastic comedy community, and we have shows nearly every night of the week. Many of them are free. So I just trotted off to the comedy shows nearly every night, and I love the camaraderie and the laughter and the endorphins that you get from being in a crowd and laughing together. So after when I was also terrified, I had huge admiration for the stand-ups, because I thought that took so much courage to get in front of a crowd and try to make them laugh, and the embarrassment that you might feel if they didn't laugh at you. So, but after 4 years, I became a stand-up comedian myself, and later that year began development of the Smartlys. So it all happened pretty fast once it started happening.
Well, that's awesome. I've never been one to be comfortable enough to try anything like that. So kudos to both of you for getting out there and being able to do that. So how did this collaboration begin with the Smartlys and then with you two?
We began the Smartlys the very tail end of 2017, I think. And 30 days after I came up with the idea for this show, we produced a sizzle clip. And then 6 months later, we were starting to work on the pilot, and we needed another actor to play the role of Preston, who is the villain in the show. And that's when Floyd auditioned and won the role of Preston. Later on, he became involved in video editing for us. And then during the pandemic, he also took over as director and producer.
Very cool. So it started with you auditioning Floyd and then kind of built its way up.
Yeah, for us to actually be working together. We had Floyd had also begun helping us after we had done the first pilot. He was involved in putting together our pitch and trying to get things good enough so that, you know, we could pitch the show. We ended up not really pitching the show. We ended up developing the entire first season ourselves.
Wow. That's incredible.
It is. It was a matter of circumstances too. Really, Shelley ended up in the hospital, and
Yeah.
right after we had filmed the pilot,
Oh,
and
wow.
she was looking for someone to pick up the hard drive with all the video, which she had with her, and get it
In
to
the hospital.
and that's a whole nother story why she had it with her. And get it to the editor. And so I offered to do it. I went and picked it up, and the editor couldn't meet me until like this was like Thursday or Friday, I think. And the editor couldn't meet me until Tuesday. So I downloaded Premiere Pro editing software and started playing with it, and did a trailer from it, and we started working that way. And I ended up doing the editing then, and yeah, that's where our collaboration really began.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah, thank goodness I was in the hospital, or maybe this all wouldn't have ever happened.
First of all, are you okay now?
Yeah, I do have severe autoimmune disease though, and that's one of the things that led us to be extremely cautious about COVID. And we produced the entire season during COVID lockdown. And Floyd was a genius and came up with ways that we could do that by having our cast across the United States and Canada self-film themselves and maintain their health safety while creating a really funny show at the same time.
That's the best. That makes it all worthwhile when it can be safe
Mhm.
and funny, and it just makes a great show.
Mhm. Thank you.
So you mentioned a little bit ago that Preston is the villain of the show. Can you go a little bit more into detail on describing both of your characters?
Okay, the basic plot of the show is that Eric and I win $300 million and we retire as king and queen of the Minnesota Renaissance Fair. We buy a luxury beachfront complex in La Jolla, which is on the shores in San Diego. And our entire family lives there while they try to get our money by hook or by crook. Preston is the one that's really set up to get it. And every day he has another scheme to try to part Eric and I from our money. And meanwhile, I want Preston to have a marriage made in heaven. He said that that's what he wanted. And I figure in my insanity, which I am, that the only way to get him there is to get him dead. That's the only way he can get into heaven. And so I set Eric out on a plan to try to get Preston into heaven every day. So there's an awful lot of conflict in the show, but that's wonderful for comedy. It's necessary for comedy, actually.
For sure. Especially in taking things literally like that.
Uh-huh. And Preston would be a greedy, narcissistic, sociopathic, histrionic, philandering, former Gulf Pro baby brother. So he has his work cut out for him, and it's actually the polar opposite of Floyd's real personality, and that makes it even more fun to work with, actually. Don't you think, Floyd?
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes it so much fun to do. You know, it's all those things you would never, well, should never think of doing in real life. And so, you know, it's fun to be able to do it on camera and play with it, you know, and take it in different angles, you know, stuff like I said that you just shouldn't do in life. Do it on camera and laugh at it.
Yeah, do not be like Floyd. I mean, do be like Floyd, don't be like Preston.
Yeah. For sure. Excuse me. So when you're coming up with when you're writing the show and working on your character, how do you approach the comedy with it, if that makes sense?
Oh, yeah, it does make sense. We decided on having a very campy approach to it, over the top, whimsical, so that people can have a lot of fun with physical comedy, facial expressions, and um, know that we know that we're being funny in a pretty old-fashioned style. We're not trying to be modern. We're not trying to underplay our comedy. We're just trying to go over the top. And our inspiration was classic comedy, like from 50, 60, 70 years ago. And we wanted to bring back comedy duos, which we brought back in full force in the show. You probably noticed we have about 6 comedy duos in the show, which play off against each other and create their hijinks. We have Eric and I are one comedy duo, and Dan and Sandra McClellan. We're fortunately, that's a father-daughter team that were able to perform together during the pandemic. And Floyd is teamed up with his grandson, Dominic Strayer. So, and Dominic plays Floyd's caddy, who they have switched feelings. So his caddy is 16 and Preston is 69, and they've had a special procedure to switch their feelings. So the caddy is basically in charge of Preston, and that creates kind of endless hijinks there. Then we have Tommy Lucero and Quanta Beasley are another comedy duo. And Tommy is a terrific stand-up comedian here in San Diego and and other surrounding areas. Quanta is an actress in Los Angeles, and we also have Shelley Landa, Monica Sarabia, Jim Winkler and Melvin Powell, Allison Price and Will Osaccia, and then a standalone as Gary Talixon. But it sounds like an awful lot, but we needed 15 characters to see us through the series that we have planned for the Smartlys.
Interesting.
Another interesting note on that, and I don't know whether you could tell in watching it, maybe now that you hear it, you will. But the first 3 duos she talked about, her and Eric, Dan and his daughter, and Dominic and I, are the only ones that were actually in the scene together at the time we filmed it. All the other duos, some of them haven't never even met each other. Were all filmed independently and then put together on film in the film structure. So they look like they're together, but never even met. So that was part of the hurdle, to overcome to put a show out. I think it makes it more interesting once you know that. Probably why I appreciate it so much more than some other people is that knowing how it was put together, and we have such chemistry, like with Felicia, the psychic princess, with
Adair.
Yeah, I wanted to say Tommy with Adair. And I think they just play off each other very well in the movie, but yet I've never met. So
that's really interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and kind of, I mean, I didn't tell the first time I watched it, so I doubt I'll be able to tell, but knowing that now makes it just more interesting.
Oh, great. I'm so glad that you didn't notice it the first time. That makes me feel really good.
Yeah, I think people are pretty shocked that to learn that, and so we're actually proud of it. As well, I think we should be, because there was an awful lot of effort in figuring out how to do that.
Is there going to be a season 2? Can we look forward to more?
There is. We have season 2 in development now, and we have 8 seasons planned for the series. And we plan to end the series on our 64th show. And that's because that's where the arc of our story is. And also because the entire show basically takes place on the same day, which is the day before Eric and I celebrate our 50th anniversary. And
Interesting.
yeah, so there's a little bit of time travel and playing around with that. It helps give us the whimsical environment, and it also is part of our message of hope. We feel that laughter is very important for us and for the whole society in order to heal from the last few years and how tragic they've been for many of us. And part of that is that we all also need hope. And to have hope, we need to have something to look forward to. And so Eric and I are perennially looking forward to our happiness the next day for our 50th anniversary, and everybody's always preparing for it. I know that sounds a little bit like it might be boring, but the Smartlys, we keep you on your toes.
It's a good message too.
Thank you.
You have a lot planned for that one day.
An awful lot planned for that one day. And we're also able to move characters around in time. We're not very tethered to reality, which is another charming feature of the show. You'll notice, or probably you didn't notice, but our show doesn't have any cameras. We don't have any cell phones. We don't have people looking at computers. We don't even have doorbells. We don't have newspapers or radios. We've created our own little time capsule. The only electronic thing that we do have is that our granddaughter, Letty Mae Smartly, has a live seal cam looking at La Jolla Cove. And so she needs to have that because that's her passion, is to study the seals. But that's our only window into the outside world, is through her seal cam. And her seal cam, I don't know if you caught this, but a few weeks ago, there was a viral video of the sea lions chasing the beachgoers away in La Jolla Cove. And it just blew up. And Letty actually caught the real behind the scenes view of that, of what caused the sea lions to chase the beachgoers. And so we're going to be having that in season 2 of the Smartlys.
That's really cool. No, I didn't catch that.
Well, you will after the show, and so will all your listeners.
Going forward, are you going to continue having kind of remote acting and then bringing them together through editing, or are you going to try to do more in-person work?
We're going to stay remote, especially for season 2. We have actors 9, almost said 9 to 90, almost there, 9 to 79. And, there's Shelley has autoimmune, disease. So she has issues of being around other people. So in order to get everybody on stage or something, it's prohibitive. So we're going to continue with it, as well as we do have actors in Canada, the Northwest, Oregon area and stuff. So pulling all that, keeping the same actors is important to us. And this will allow us to do that no matter where they're at. I've filmed part of this in the hotel room up in Idaho because I needed to redo some footage with my grandson, and I took that opportunity to go visit him, and we set up in our green screen in the hotel room. Now the maid might have thought we were doing something else, but
they weren't. It was totally above board. Trust us.
When can we look forward to season 2?
We plan to issue that in March of next year.
Cool.
Maybe things will happen earlier, but kind of doubtful. We think that we'll be on schedule for March because it's a lot to just get the launch of season 1 out.
That's fair.
Right.
So laughter is incredibly powerful. I mean, you just explain to me how it was powerful for the both of you. So being on the creative side of that, what does it mean to you to be able to use your talents and create that laughter in your audience?
It's absolutely fantastic. It's so heartwarming to be able to share that. Our mission is to share joy, to spread joy throughout the world. And it's such an honor to be in a position to make that dream come true. Um, we want to just be a very small part of the healing force for the world. Our politics have become so divisive. There are many huge issues facing the world right now, and we all need some relief. We all need some hope. We all need something to uplift us. And so we're just honored that we can just be a very small part of bringing that to some people who appreciate our form of humor. Oh, which is another thing. Our show is entirely free of political humor of any kind. We don't deal with current events. We're we're in our own little world. We're sequestered from everything that happens, and our entire show takes place on September 2nd of 2019. So it takes place before the pandemic, and we're not affected by that. And so if people do want political humor or things that are out to change the world in a changing society sort of way, we're not that show. But we are the show to escape all that stuff.
It is definitely refreshing to remove all of the politics and current events from the media.
Mhm. Thank you.
And before I let you go, the final question I have for you is, do you have any words of wisdom for people who want to pursue comedy?
Floyd, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I was thinking of this when you were just talking about that last question about comedy. You ever heard any of the A-list actors that are millionaires talk about, I can't wait to get back to Broadway. I just want to get away from the screen and go back to Broadway, get on stage again. And at least personally, growing up, I always thought, yeah, right. You can afford to do that. You can afford not to. But being on stage doing stand up, or being on stage as an actor and getting that immediate audience feedback on what you just did, there's no other feeling like it. And knowing you can bring that to an audience broader now, that reaction, that comedy, that relief from the real world, really, which we all need, is just tremendous. I really enjoy knowing that, and hearing, like, that it made you laugh. So.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say that for me, before I ever got up on stage, I was going to comedy shows almost every night of the week for 4 years. I was just marinating myself in comedy and humor, and just loving all the other comedians, and how they would take their toils and troubles of life and convert it into comedy. I thought that was just astounding. It's not that I think you'll find that comedians in general probably have a lot more troublesome lives than other people, and have used comedy in order to try to cope with that, and to lighten up, and to have a life despite their tragedies. And I just, for a new comedian, I would say first get a real appreciation and a real love of comedy and the comedians, and then let it take you where it will. But I wouldn't just jump into going on stage right away, at least for me, because I had a more serious bent my whole life. So it took a while for me to really lighten up and see the funny side of things. So I would say to love the field first. Don't just think that it's a get rich quick scheme,
Yeah, it's not.
because it's not. I can guarantee you it's not. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you so much for chatting with me and for creating the show. I really appreciate it. Like as we've talked about within these times, it's good to have a laugh.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having us on your show today. We really appreciate it.